So we're going to take our sculpted detail from Mudbox into Maya, create some low polys that we can use in our game engines, UV them, and bake out our normal detail so we can get that nice sculpted detail that we've created so far. All right, so here's our outline that I'll roughly be following in our video. So the first thing we're going to do is take some stuff out of Mudbox and put it into Maya. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is export out some meshes. Um, Meshes, so two, we only have one mesh in here in this current Mudbox scene. Yeah, we're going to do two meshes at the same mesh at two different subdivision levels. All right. What we want to achieve with these subdivision levels is we want to have a sculpted, or take our sculpted model and still be able to uh, build our geometry on top of its, more glaring detail on the silhouettes, like, these bigger indentions and extrusions and this irregular silhouette shape we have right here on the brick. But we can't take in our 3 million poly mesh because that would just tank Maya. So what we need to do is kind of go down to a sub D level with page down. And level 4 looks pretty good. We're only about 200,000 polygons, but I'm roughly seeing most of the large detail that I want to capture in my silhouette. So being at this subdivision level, what we're going to do is select my mesh in the scene. We'll go to File, and we will go to Export Selection. And I'm just going to put it on my desktop now as a OBJ. And I want to call this Retopo Mesh because this is what I'm actually going to retopo on top of. We'll save that. Nice. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go down to another subdivision level. And this second model is going to be used to aid in our low poly mesh creation. So what we're looking for, if we go down all the way to our lowest sub D level that we started out with, in particular, I want to be able to keep the same kind of detail around this hole, this manhole cover, and basically the same kind of arch in this wall um, as, if we go up to our highest sub D. I want to kind of try to keep that geometry truer to form. Now, you could say, well, why not just use this as your low poly in general? Um, I guess you could, but you'll find that with our wireframe, the edge flow isn't the best for what I would consider a low poly, but you could get away with this in several instances. In fact, um, we're probably going to use a lot of our original mesh and then retopo only a few different parts of it. We're going to try to be as smart as possible during this process. But the original one isn't that great because look at the silhouette of this manhole cover, right? So I'm thinking I'm going to go up to sub D2, and that is some round detail I can live with right there. Um, but again, our topology is looking rough in some of the more complex areas. So we're going to combine both of these meshes and into our low poly, or not combine them, but use them both in subsequent workflows. All right, so we're going to export out this guy next. Uh, Again, we have to select our mesh in our object list. Normally we'd be in layers, but we'll go up here to our object list, select it, export our selection, and let's call this low sub D mesh. It's not our low poly, it's just a low sub D mesh of our sculpted detail. And I'm going to go all the way up here back, and I'll be coming back to this guy in a little bit because we're going to bake our normal maps right here in Mudbox. So next we're going to go into Maya. You can see all of my OBJs that I've saved right here on my desktop. We're going to open up Maya and we're going to go to a fresh scene, preferably if, inside of your current Maya project that you're working with this particular uh, project that you're working on. So we're going to go to import and let's import those OBJs. Let's go to file type and retopo mesh. We'll import that. That's fine. And nice. We can see that the scene is not too chunky, but we get a pretty good amount of detail that we can start quad drawing on top of. And next, why don't we import our low sub D mesh? Where's my import? There it is. And then our low sub D, we'll import that. And let's clean up our outliner. This stuff over here can probably just be deleted. All right, so that's my low sub D. So it's got some great detail for my manhole cover. I'd probably, if I was going to use this geometry, I'd probably have to go in and reduce it by hand a little bit more, which we'll see. But for right now, I'm going to set up some layers and get the scene more organized. So we're going to just take our low sub D mesh and let's put it in a layer. Call it low sub D lay. And I'm going to go ahead and hide it. Then we're going to take my retopo mesh and put it in its own layer. Oops. Retopo lay. And I'm not going to lock that out or hide it yet. What I am going to do is start looking at this model as a whole and figure out what parts I need to retopo and what parts I could probably just derive from my low sub D mesh that I just imported. So the main reason I wanted to bring in this low sub D mesh was to get this circular detail. To retopo this and make it perfectly like spaced out like this would be somewhat difficult. So anytime you find like there's some cylinders in your mesh that might be hard to kind of just place our faces by eye on and lose that precision, maybe consider using some previous geometry for that. The places I know for sure I want to go in and make new geometry would be like these nice silhouette changes here that'll, of course that could be baked as a normal, but as a showcase piece or a hero prop or whatever, that extra little step would be creating geometry for some of your more prominent details, and they catch the light of your scene even more, thus, prettier graphics. So, if you wanted to put the bells and whistles on something, spinning in a few extra polygons here and there is probably a good idea. I'm probably going to retopo this part too. It's just so irregular, and the geometry here is just so terrible. I, th- I th- I'd rather just start fresh than have to go in and try to clean this up by hand. Um, so parts that I want to use for my low sub D, of course, would be my manhole and probably just the general silhouette around the non-destroyed edges, and maybe we can figure out a way to use that back piece, or I may not even include a back face on my low poly. Uh, you got to figure out how this model is going to be used in your game engine, and if this is just kind of like a showcase case piece where you can only view it from maybe this angle, then I'd probably not want to spend time doing the back because it's not interesting, or I'm not going to put any focus on it. All right. So I guess why don't we get started in the retoppling process now that I got a good plan of attack. Okay, our first step in this retopo process is to bring our retopo mesh that's a little bit thicker, has more detail, and we're going to make it a live surface by right-clicking on the object and clicking Make Live. And instantly, it means I can't select it. It's locked out, basically, for all intents and purposes. But it does have a nice feature where the Quadrille will magnetically snap to the surface here. So that's the next big thing to think about is our Quadrille tool. So if we go up here in our modeling toolkit, let me zoom in so we can see that. We got gingerbread man, hammers, lollipops, stack of papers, and Rubik's Cube and hammer. I don't know, that's stupid, but that's how I just remember these. So Rubik's Cube and hammer is our modeling toolkit, and it has most of our modeling tools that we've learned throughout our days, but it also has good support for our Quadrille tool right here. And this Quadrille tool is going to be the name of the game. Make sure auto weld is locked on so our vertices snap together really easily. Everything else can just be set to default. I've never really had to mess with settings too much. The biggest and best part of our modeling toolkit with Quadrille is we get all these keyboard and mouse shortcuts to help us learn how to use the tool more efficiently. So if you don't have that open and you aren't referring to it, you're probably going to be having a little bit tougher time. So I'm going to have that open. And Quadrille is an interesting tool. It allows you to basically draw out vertices, drag out faces. It's almost like the opposite of box modeling, where you start out with a box. With Quadrille, you actually just make your model one face at a time. And if we have a go live surface, then we can easily start snapping detail. All right, so the best way to figure out how it works is to see me use it. We're going to focus on creating border edge geometry and our complex geometry, then learning how to connect it all together. A good plan of attack for just quad drawing your retopo is to look for some of the more complex geometry here and to make like your border faces around it so we can make sure we capture that detail and we aren't constrained by having to hook it up with anything yet. So why don't we go ahead and figure out how to do that? All right, so the way I like to get started with Quadrille is if you just left click and left click, I'm actually putting down vertices and I'm trying to draw a face that's going to be on the brick wall side and the very deepest part of my hole here, just around the border. And then when you get 4 vertices drawn, you can hold down shift and left click and boom, we got our first face to work with. This face is going to be pretty nice because we have lots of tools at our disposal, like hold down tab and left click and drag an edge. We'll just draw out another face. And the big thing I want y'all to take away right now is to work big. Okay? Work big. I mean big. Because we can always go in and add more detail, and it's easier just to kind of block out your shapes, kind of like how you would be making a portrait of somebody or any kind of character. You block out the shapes with big primitives first, big broad strokes, and then you get in and you figure out that more intimate detail later. So I'm really just trying to hit all the major changes in shape here. You know, that corner, and like this corner right here, and you can see the Quadrille tool just snapping like a crazy monkey. And I'll probably do maybe 1 or 2 more faces, one right there. And just making sure I catch this nice detail. And I'm going to go ahead and see with with auto snap on or auto weld, I can snap my vertices together. The middle mouse click and drag those verts together. All right. By no means is this uh, good enough yet. So we're going to go in and add some extra geometry. And look what we can do. We can just left click or hold down control and left click. And that geometry just snaps for us. Imagine how easy it would have been to get lost in making these tiny little faces, spending all this time to perfectly position them when you could have just worked big and then came back and added your geometry later. Don't start small, work big, go big. All right, and that's really what we want to focus on right now is creating these nice little border edges around some of the more complex shapes. So if it was a tree, it'd be around, you know, the base of every limb, every big limb, at the base of the trunk, and then you can worry about connecting them all together. I'm going to do the same thing here. Start out with just a nice little 4 vertices, then hold down shift and left click. And then what I'm going to do here is try to start from the brick side and go up to a nice, you know, kind of where the little concrete juts out. Again, we're going to work big. I know this goes up here. I know this goes there. Make sure you adjust your vertices so you can kind of start wrangling the shape that your border will travel. So you see me doing some quick adjustments. I'm already starting to work a little bit smaller than I feel like I should. It's easy to get caught in the small details doing this. Make sure it doesn't happen to you. All right, so this probably needs to go there. And don't worry, spend the extra time you need to really capture this border detail um, because the reason why we do this is because we want to make sure we have some really good topology to support this more interesting, complex stuff going on. Nice. You see how I did that? I just whipped that vertex in place. And now I'm going to go in and refine this. So, you know, it's not going to be perfect. And that's the beauty about baking normals to more organic shapes. They're real. I didn't really change the silhouette at all, did it? If you don't see that things are snapping and changing the silhouette, chances are you didn't need that geometry. Like right here, the mesh, nothing really moves. But right there, you see how it kind of jumped and filled out? That's a good sign that you made some good geometry changes. So right there, maybe not. I thought for sure that was going to be a good place to put geometry. You know what? I will anyway, and just hand touch it up because I feel like it needs to be a little bit more detailed. And then right there, nice. And then that looks like a pretty good little start for that part. And then zooming out will always really tell the story of what's going on with your mesh. Just tweaky tweaks. Um, Again, I'm going to do the same thing here. I would say I'd skip ahead, but it just is always good to see somebody work. So I think you guys are more competent enough or competent enough to be able to skip ahead in a time slider. So if you want to skip ahead, you can, or you can be, hopefully you're more or less following my outline too. All right. So big shapes, big changes in the direction of the geometry here. And then, who says you can't go in and add some as you make it either? It's a very organic process. No pun intended for our more organic environment stuff. Um, this is what the difference is between hard surface and organic sculpted models. With hard surface, you got to be exact on your normals and the way you build your underlying geometry. With this, with it being just so funky, nothing's really going to be at a 90-degree angle. So normal maps are going to have an easier time baking out for us. And even just talking, I got stuck in small detail. Everybody's screaming at this monitor. I get it. Uh, that's just too egregious. You'll know if something's too crazy to do a big shape on. You'll know because it'll just look real funky. All right. Big detail there. This piece is just really irregularly shaped in general. So kind of easy to get lost in the minutia and the little stuff. So let's zoom out and let's refine. So we want our outside edge to be as closely butted up against that brick and the concrete border as possible. And the edge loop on this side, we just want to be able to go up enough to where everything, all these missing faces will more or less be on the same flat plane. What we really want to do with this new geometry we're creating is giving our lights in our scene to catch a nice edge right here to really bring home the fact that this wall used to be, covered with some concrete or patched over, and it just really helps things pop off. All right, great. Uh, yeah, we can see I'm really missing the ball right there. And this piece is crazy, so I'm gonna maybe have to go in and start making my triangles. But don't make your triangles yet, because you can see that kind of ended my insert edge loop ability. So it might be tempting to go ahead and start making triangles now when you're building kind of this defining edge, but triangles will cut away some of the tools that'll be helpful for you. Because triangles and inserting edge loops do not like each other. Heck, I might do something like this now too. That border edge is just too much. So I'm going to extrude some detail out there too. Refine, refine, refine. I'm beginning to think I might be coming out too far. We really kind of just want to be on the edge of that stair-scaped uh, bevel that we end up with. So let me go back and refine that even more. So like I said, this geometry, this border edge is is the important part of this detail because it's what's going to catch that nice lipped edge. Some of this detail kind of just gets muddy because the sculpted model gets muddy. So it won't need as much serious stuff going on, but look at this little corner sticking out. I almost missed that. And then we just raise it up. So this border actually should be a lot thinner, right? Oh, and then just viewing stuff at different angles makes all the difference too. See how I'm really looking for like this delineation of where these see the light in Maya shows us that this is catching light at a different value because it's at a jutted out angle. And then the top of here is too. So that's really what I should be focusing on with these border edges right now. So always, always be orbiting around your model. You know, I got started out making some big geometry, and it's really facilitating me making these nice corrections here. But, don't just rely on just pooping out some geometry and saying, oh, that's good. Really consider, if we're going to all this trouble to add this geometry, we got to really consider why it's working for us inside of our game engine. And like I said, I'll repeat it. I want this stuff, this little border edge I'm making, to really grip the edges of the light, to tell the player that, hey, this geometry here is real serious. I don't like the way I did that. It's, I feel like it just gets a little bit. Actually, you know what? It's okay. I think this part of the concrete gets a little flat. Why don't we bring up our reference to figure it out? Yeah, it just becomes a little bit. Well, no, it's still defined. Hmm. I think this just might be a case of maybe we don't have enough information to figure out where our nice little detail is, but we'll do the best we can. Normal maps will still pick up most of that good detail. So if it's not as clean and perfect in some spots, you know what? I'm going to start combining my triangles now. I'm just middle mouse clicking and dragging. Let's add that. Let's make this a little bit more organic looking because spending all this time, let's really try to grab that edge. Nice. Did we do a good job up here with that? It's kind of a little bit harder to tell, but I'd rather be safe than sorry, and y'all kind of bring these back. Will the angles help us out? Different angles? It's helping a little bit from looking at it here. All right, cool. I'm not going to obsess too much. This looks like it needs a little bit more. So this kind of comes to a point I'm going to talk about a little bit more in a little bit with elegant topology. We really want to accentuate the edge flow of this detail. And so, making nice, smooth, evened out topology like you were using a relax tool is really how we should go. You can always come back and hit some places with a relax brush inside of Maya to make the geometry a little bit more evened out, but let's not sweat the small stuff. All right, so I'm not even going to fill in this. I'm just going to focus straight on my border edges. Then I can get to all that inside stuff later. All right. Next, why don't we do some more complex geometry? So we got our border edges of some of our detail here. This right here is looking to be pretty ridiculous. So why don't we just tackle it together? I'm going to start about right here. It looks like it when it gets somewhat irregular. So I want to draw out my first 4 vertices and hold down shift and right click and get started with some faces. And if you haven't guessed it yet, going big is what we're going to try to do. But you'll see that going big sometimes can shoot us in the foot. I predict that we'll have some issues. But I'm not going to abandon going big yet. Here's something cool. So if you angle something just right where the edge of like where you want to place your vertice is like just in free space, the vertice doesn't have anything to snap to, but if you're doing it like this, see how I could go over there? So leverage your camera angles to the most optimal viewing angle. Oh, you can see that that is not looking too good. Big detail is shooting us in the foot right now. But that's something we can always go back and add. Uh, let's just keep on going. So really, I just kind of wanted to start describing these bricks as if they were just normal. Uh, yep. See, that's the problem with going big or using crazy geometry. See how my vertice just snapped on the other side here? And then as I was clicking to try to move it, even with the middle mouse button, it created these 2 extra points. I don't want them. Control Shift will turn our arrow into an X, and we can just left click and delete them. Don't press the delete key. It's not what we're trying to do. So more than ever, looking at your model from various angles is going to be very important in some of this crazier detail we're trying to describe with fewer polygons. Remember, that's the whole point of this. We need to describe all this nice detail with as few polys as possible. Again, I just had a little whoopsie making an extrovert. If you see one, I just Control Z to undo that extra mishap vert. So don't forget, you can definitely do that. So yeah, and you'll sometimes find it hard to be able to select the vertice at certain angles. So just keep spinning around your model, find the best way for it. There's no right or wrong answer. And make sure that when you extrude an edge, you hold down the tabs and not the caps lock. Because, oh, you see how dumb that was? I was literally on that, and then it just drug out a new vertice. So, gotta pay attention because you could be left with a bunch of geometry you do not want. And more or less, it's because you're trying to click at a vertice that's not at an optimal viewing angle for Maya. So it freaks out and just puts down a new vertice because it's like, you can't do that. So what was wrong with that? Okay, I got to be on this side, I guess. No, right here. So it's a little tedious. But, laying down this good foundation and paying attention to it is going to make going in and cleaning it up and making it more poly heavy that much easier. So don't rush this stuff. Give it some good consideration. That's going to need some extra geometry, you can already tell. So I'm just going to go ahead and add it. I know. Why haven't I been doing that all the way around? Well, I just felt like doing it right there. I don't need to explain myself. Well, I kind of do. All right. Don't hold down the tilde key instead of tab because it won't do anything. Hopefully your fingers work better than mine. And right now we can check our progress to see how many more bricks we got to do. Or you can just, accept your fate and be like, it'll get done when it gets done. I can't do that. Okay, we're almost done. That was a tilde key that time. All right, cool. I haven't played PC games in a while, so my shortcut kinetic memory on my keyboard shortcuts is a little rusty. I'm trying to think of things to talk about as I do this because this is the most tedious stuff ever. There used to be an old program I called Topo Gun, and this was before Maya had like this good Quadrille tool. You would have to go to outside programs, third-party programs that were just all about retopologizing. Topo Gun could bake normals. They did a good job baking normals and ambient occlusion maps. But back in the day, Maya didn't have all this nice stuff going on with it. So we just had to make do. And might as well just kind of bring that out. All right. So that's some complex geometry. And now why don't we go back and clean up some of the more egregious spots with control and left click. So hope that snaps. Ooh, beautiful snap. And really, it's all about seeing this from all kinds of angles. And you know what? Looks like we need some geometry right up the middle of this, so we're going to do that. Ooh, relax shift and left click will help relax our geometry so it falls down on our model a little bit better. I'm just going to go ahead and add that. It really needs that middle edge loop here. I mean, this is a very complex bit of geometry there, and you already just see how jagged that line is by having to snap and adhere to all this geometry there. And you know what? I think I'm going to extend out some geometry there and really capture this part. Maybe just do a triangle right there. Nope, I kind of want to come out here and grab that too. Okay, cool. Let's keep going with making this a little bit more accurate to its silhouette. I guess the rule of thumb I'm using is just I'm inserting just edge loops at the center, and then I'm going to go back like this and see where the actual vertices need to go to grab the best parts of the geometry. This is a crazy brick right here. It's probably going to need a little extra work, a little bit of extra geometry. But this is a part where we can really rely on our organic geometry to make the normal map baking process a little bit easier. Sometimes things just don't snap right, so I'll just drag out a face and then manually snap my vertices. Because, you know, I'm not going to fight some magnetic algorithm. Nice. And then looks like this part really kind of juts out right here and does this. I'm good with this part right there being, well, can that, okay, no I'm not. That looks better. That looks better, better, better. It's just amazing how this magnetic go live tool works. It would be a nightmare to do, you know, extrude by hand and all that crazy stuff. Let's just do these two in the center. Whoa, sometimes you'll get some madness happen like that. And what it's doing is it's clipping through like this little thin part right here and going all the way up there. So let's make sure understanding what's going on with your geometry is pretty important. It's having a tough time being able to read what's going on there. Okay. Yeah, this part's just complex. If you want to speed it up, I'm not going to really talk much. Just let me finish this. You speed up the playback speed. That's crazy. So I'm just making sure that this geometry kind of just has a good flow before I kind of leave it be. So I'm just dragging things out, trying to keep things as quad as possible. So it's maybe easier to work with. The longer you can keep something as quads, the better. Let's do something like this. Looks like this geometry gets real crunchy down in here. I want to accentuate that little dip. Sometimes all it takes is a nice little vert to just go into the middle of a dip and just let the normal map just figure it out from there, get that good detail going. Don't get frustrated if you can't grab a vert, because more likely it's just not you're just not viewing it at the right angle. And we can start thinking about some low poly stuff here. It's not doing too much right there. See that that'll catch that detail nice right there. And might as well go ahead and keep going with this. I probably shouldn't be doing this down part. I can probably grab that from the other mesh we imported in. But it's a tedious process. Hold down shift and left click. Maya will try to find out the best face to make. Only do that when you know it's a good face to make. Don't just try to be like, well, is this good? Is this good? Is this... Understand what you're trying to do when you're trying to close in these faces, like right here. I'm going to show you an example. I know I need a face right there, so I'll use that tool. I'm not just being like, well, actually, I'll no, because then I just let Maya bully me, and I give extra geometry to catch all that stuff going on. So I'm going to give a nice hand touch to this. I might have to create some more geometry. I'm just going to go ahead and bite that bullet, because this part is nutso. And just keep in mind, all you're trying to do is just add surfaces to catch light inside your game engine. The detail will come from your maps. But we're just trying to give those maps a nice place to live. Again, that could probably be done better. Triangle's messing that up. A nice little edge flow right there will really help us get that nice jutted out detail. And I guess this can just go right there, and we'll bring that up and do something like that. I'm not worried too much about triangles when I know I'm finishing up an area. Boom. Make that a face. What is it? Is it like this? Boom. So if there's like a good edge flow, it stops right here because a triangle, we get a pole with a triangle attached. If you hold down tab and middle mouse drag, you can drag out multiple faces on an edge at a time. Very tricky. Don't rely on it too much. What we want to do here is probably just do something like that. No need to end it in a triangle. All right, now I'm going to go in and see. That's pretty much what I wanted to do with this. That's such a pretty good shape of that silhouette. At least in the game engine, that's really going to accentuate the rugged nature. Now let's see how we can start connecting some of these bigger pieces of geometry together, and what parts we're going to just leave to combine with our low sub D mesh that we made. And this kind of ties into the next bullet point with low poly count considerations as well. So they'll kind of both be in the same uh, go round of workflows. All right. So right now I'm kind of just going in and getting rid of verts that aren't really doing anything for those dips and dots and cracks that we got going on. Yeah, I don't think that's doing too much. Just look at me being like a detective, just sleuthing around to see what angles I need stuff at and what angles I don't. It's a pretty safe bet that big, large, flat surfaces, we don't need that extra detail. And unless I put that vert like right up there, that wasn't going to do much. But with that vert being right there, we really kind of catch this little peak. If it was down here, we wouldn't catch that little peak right here. But we can use existing geometry to kind of grab some of those bigger valleys and peaks. All right, just keep working. And don't forget to look at this inside either. I don't think that was benefiting from that middle. This could benefit better right there. Just don't let Maya's automation tell you where your geometry should go. Let your artistic eye do that. That's why we make the money and not the algorithms. Okay. Well, algorithms do make a lot of money. All right, so this has got some real issues here. It's more round, so I think I'm just going to have to go in. Hopefully I can make some more geometry and do that. Boom. Let's really drive in this rounded stuff going on. And I'll give us more geometry to catch more of this detail with. I might be getting a little too pedantic at this point with it. That's good enough. Mm. All right. This auto weld makes the low poly process really easy. So, there's a big valley here, so I'm going to kind of go in with this, and then it'll come out right there. Yeah, it's not the biggest description of this dip, but we got our normal maps. This little jut out here can be a little annoying, so I'm going to see what I can do with it. So hard to see from all these different angles sometimes. And we'll keep this vert around to help accentuate that dip. All right, great. And we'll just bring this right out. We're going to try to get a nice clean edge to start connecting this to other geometry with. All right, so next we're going to go in and just finish this out. I wish I knew a better way other than doing something like this, but again, the automated tools that kind of make things easy, debatable. But I mean, come on, how much easier can you get than this? Extrude, extrude, extrude. So this is where things get dumb. Let's see if Maya has a good solution. Sometimes it does. I want it right there. I do one right there. And then it's up to me to go in and make that lot not look dumb. Yeah, I'll just do this. So I kind of had to do a few things to get there, but I got there. I don't like how that did. Oop, there we go. And we'll just complete it. You're not going to help me complete it? There we go. So not too bad overall. Again, I don't want to spend more geometry than I have to. So a lot of this is just going to be straight connects. And yeah, you can weld these edges together by hovering them over. So that's pretty cool. Forgot to extrude. And then this will give us that. And then that'll give us that. So yeah, the make a whole thing, it can be pretty useful. But right here, it's just too much of a, what's going on? Nobody knows. So we'll just go in and make it ourselves. It's doing a decent job. Not too great there though. Undo that, and let's extend it that time. Nice. I feel like that can go right there a little bit more. All right, cool. So now we have to figure out how to get all of this connected. And I think it's just more of the same, just dragging it out right here. And at this point, I might want to go ahead and start thinking about my low poly count considerations. You know what? This looks pretty good. I think I was already doing that when I was completing this geometry a little bit more. And, elegant geometry. So if you see something that just looks really jagged and weird, this edge loop right here is a bad example because it really is that jagged and weird. But we were talking about that a little bit earlier where our edge flow should be nice and smooth and flowy. So it's not like this, for instance, you know, there's no need for it to be all that jagged, like just all irregular. Let's give it some nice, elegant curves with as few vertices as possible. All right, at this point, I'm probably going to go and try and combine my low sub D mesh with what I got now, and then I'll probably make it live again and finish it out with Quadrille. All right, so this is the stuff that we created, this low poly surface, so I'm not going to worry about renaming it yet. I am going to get out of my Quadrille tool with my selection key. You'll notice what happens. We're left with this geometry that we created with our Quadrille, and for all, it's basically normal geometry at this point. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring this in. I'm going to go ahead and put this on its own layer, so I can't select it on accident, but I can still see it. We're going to go in and start cleaning up our low sub D stuff. But before that, why don't we figure out what parts of this low sub D we don't need? So anything associated with this. And I'm not being too particular with what I'm getting rid of. I just know if there's geometry there, I probably don't need it. So I'm really kind of just taking large swaths out. And I'll take geometry around that out, around that out, and geometry around this. Just take it completely out because we already got it considered. All right, this looks crazy so far, but just bear with me. Now I'm going to go in and fix some of these unneeded edges. So I'm just going to double click. I really just want a flat edge around here. Nice. And let's get rid of some of these support edge loops that managed to make their way back to us. And then all this detail we don't need. Let's get, again, right now I'm just going through and taking away all the support edge loops that help me keep my shape of my sculpt mesh and Mudbox. So a little tedious, but definitely better than having to retopo all of this by hand. And we stay truer to the silhouette of our sculpt mesh this way. Next, I'm going to go in and just figure out what edges I don't even need anymore. And I might end up with a few n-gons here and there, but we can take care of those. You might be tempting to go ahead and take something like that out, but look what it does to our manhole. So pay attention to things like that. This is way too many, so I'm going to go 2-2 skip to. Probably, it might have been a better idea to do this before cut out some chunks, because I'm going to have to go in and do things. This is going to be an organic process. I'm not going to hog tie myself into any one workflow. I'm going to go between using this mesh and hand deleting edges and quad draw. Just hit it all up. But as you can see, now I have a good basis for what's going on here. I hate this back wall. I'm going to have to figure out a way to get rid of it. Maybe I can use it. We'll just keep using it. We'll keep it there for now. All right, so what I'm going to do next is combine this newly touched up low sub D mesh with what I quad drew just now. So we'll go to mesh, combine, and now why don't we do an edit, delete all by type history. Now we only have 2 models instead of 3. We have our new low sub D. We're going to call this low poly. This is basically our low poly mesh now. And why don't we put it on a layer just to be safe. I'm going to rename this layer to low poly. See kind of how my low sub D became my low poly. We're going to bring back my retopo layer. And let's make it live one more time. Oh, it stayed live, hence the darker green wireframe. And then to go into quad draw mode, we'll select, the the low poly mesh that we just got through combining. We'll go back to my Rubik's Cube and hammer and just press Quadrille. And this is what we got to work with now. Isn't that beautiful? This can be something I can get the hang of this. I can get used to this. That's stupid 80s trope. Some stuff gets dumb. If you can't exactly get to that vertice, screw it. Just move the whole face. And from here it'll just be going in and figuring out how to make the most out of this geometry while staying true to your border edges right here. So you may have to go in and make some edges and then go back and low poly them. Important thing is just try to ensure there aren't any holes in your mesh. This is ripe for messing up on. Nice. And then I'm just going to go to my regular Q tool to go out of Quadrille. We're going to hide that. And I think I can definitely get rid of this and that. I'm going to keep some edges. So I kind of double click this because it's just these extra edge loops. They're unnecessary. And I'm going to delete them. I end up with some n-gons. But at the end of this, I'll probably do like an n-gon cleanup just to make sure. I mean, even I can't predict what's really going to go on half the time with this stuff. So I'll always go back and double check that. So let's bring back that and let's keep going with how to figure out how to get this all connected. There's probably better ways to do this, or maybe you found your own way. It's probably not what you want to hear from your instructor, but just because you're watching somebody do it doesn't mean it's the best. I mean, maybe the Quadrille tool has a way to add edges without having to do a whole loop, but I didn't read anything in the shortcuts about it. See how I'm just going as far away as I can to make the most of this geometry. Not bad, not bad at all. I'm just trying to connect the closest vertices as I can. That auto wheel tool is so good. It's a little bit extra work, isn't it? So we got to figure out what to do here. So I'm going to extend this out to right there. Extend that out there. So I'm taking an edge and merging it to a vertex. That's probably about the easiest way to handle that, I reckon. We need some geometry there. So I'm definitely going to go back in and have to retouch up some of this geometry. Make it as good as possible. All right. I don't even know what I'm trying to do there. That's probably what I need to do. Don't you like watching paint dry? If so, you'll love watching this video. Oh, be careful, man. A few times I'll do something like this, and that just messes a lot of stuff up. So be careful. And that's because when I held down tab, I didn't left click, I middle mouse click and drag because I'm middle mouse dragging my components. You can kind of get confused in your fingers and middle mouse click drag out an edge like that. I wouldn't suggest doing that unless you were specifically trying to drag up an edge of like a ring of edges or something like that. See, I just did it again. Be careful. I'll always remember the keybind for undo. That's for sure. Nope, can't mess with that border. Make sure you don't mess with those nice borders that you set up. Again, just did it again. I'm such a good developer. Things are getting real squirrely now. And then elegant edge flow. Making sure our triangles aren't too sharp. Getting rid of vertices that aren't doing much. So. There we go. And there we go. Let's add that so we can add these two boys. Let's do a boy right there. Triangle boy. Got a little weird right there, so I just went in and did it by hand. Make a square, make it square, make it square. Swing your partner around and around. Square it up. Square off. I'll quit doing that. Because it's so beautiful how this is just lining up, isn't it? Oh, it's disgusting. And you know what? Let's tie these off into triangles. They're not doing anything to help us out right here. Oh, that probably was. Oh man, did we just finish it? That back. Oh. We didn't finish it because we still got some in-gun considerations and low poly stuff to think about. But now is when you could kind of go back and erase some of the extra work you did. Like, is that a thing? Yeah, I think I wanted that geometry there. But I got an in-gun, so I'll terminate it right there. Got an in-gun, so let's terminate it right there. You know what? That whole edge loop, I don't like it. So I'm going to go back into normal mode. And we'll just go in now and delete some edge loops that we don't like. And of course, you know, who says we can't go in and start merging our own verts without the Quadrille tool? Oh, I guess it would be just easier to do it there. So in this mode, I'm just going to focus on getting rid of edge loops that I probably don't need. And look, what we're going to do is we're going to tie off some of these edge loops. And I'm going to make sure I don't select any back faces. Because this edge loop definitely isn't doing anything for us. And then we got the ones going around here. That's not really describing shape. This one isn't either. So I'm going to bring out my multi-cut tool next. So I can keep that shape there, but delete this right there. See how I'm just using all the tools at my disposal. Now I think it'll just be easier to do that kind of stuff with Quadrille. Let's go back into Quadrille. And let's start maybe shoring up some geometry by hand. Snap. And this is where you can go in and turn your auto weld up a little bit, make it a little bit easier to snap. Yeah, easier to snap. Easier to snap. I don't want to grab all of this detail or keep all of it necessarily. I mean, we're still making video game models. Nice. I probably will keep that there though. Yeah. So I don't want to have to do all that, so I'm just going to tie off. And again, I just pressed Q to get out of Quadrille mode. No biggie. And then that's not doing really anything. It's just going to make an in-gon that we'll go back and fix when we do our in-gon check. I don't really want to mess with this geometry since it's not only describing my cylinder here for my manhole, but also is kind of describing this nice curved up spot. I'm afraid if I try to get rid of it, it might do bad things. I got to figure out what to do with this back face. So I think the easiest way to tackle it, to get rid of it, would be to get a lasso and go into face mode. And what we want to do is just maybe lasso faces like that. Dang it. Um, I know what we can do. Ooh, I just discovered a new workflow. All right, follow me. So I'm going to select a ring of faces like this. That's unfortunate that it got all these. I guess we just can avoid some tedious selections. But if I delete this ring of faces, boom. What I'm going to do is kind of create a border of deleted faces around. So I just did a really swift deselect there to get rid of all these under faces right there. So that's kind of major. That's a big old chunk faces. That's too many faces. I probably should have low polyed this more, and I wouldn't have had to click so dang much. Oh yeah, we don't need to do a delete faces tool. Double check after you make such big changes. You could have just stinked up your model. All right. So see how I created a nice like border of edges, deleted faces all the way around? Oh, I need to do it here too. I'm going to kind of keep that inside faces around my manhole cover. I think those will be useful to have. But look, I'm just going to select one of these faces, and I'm going to use my shift and greater than tool, and I'm going to draw or grow my selection. And since it doesn't have any other faces they're connected to since I deleted them, it only will select the rest of those back faces. Oh no. Uh, you know what we can do? You know what? I'm not even worried about it because I have a full kit of power at my fingertips. I'm just going to go in and quadrille it out. My little mess up. And make it more efficient at the same time. All right. So I've taken care of my back faces I don't want anymore. It might have, it could have been faster to do the whole thing with quad draw, but I guarantee it wouldn't be as exact and nicely spaced out as this geometry was from our original model that turned into our sculpt model. Look how well that's just nicely. It's just nice. So I'll take the little bit of lost time there to have just that much better geometry. Oh yeah, this definitely doesn't need to exist. Get rid of that end gun. A lot of these edge loops can go too. Quad draw, and let's figure out how to get rid of those end guns I just created. And again, elegant topology. In fact, you can hold down shift and left click and do a relax. I wouldn't do a relax over here because it's kind of messing up that good topology that we started out with or wanted to achieve. But see how it's getting that nice, oh, and be careful, you don't want to relax all that detail we spent so much time trying to protect. But all these open faces and stuff, why not do a relax on them? I don't think it'll be too big of a deal. But that is a big deal, right? That's not good. So don't go ham with the relax tool, shift and left click. Don't abuse it. It'll hurt you right back. It'll break your heart. All right. Did not mean to make a domestic abuse metaphor joke right there. It's no joke. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to do what I can to just finish making this nice and low poly. I mean, it'd be a shame to go through all this sculpted work, all the texturing stuff we're about to do, and you show it at a job interview, and they bring on the lead modeler, and he says, let's see your UV layout or your wireframe. and then they see all these needless vertices everywhere, it's just going to be like, dude, you spent all that time and you didn't do that. They're not going to see that as like being lazy. They're just going to see that as being like, you don't know what the hell you're doing. You know all these crazy advanced workflows, but you don't know to go in and, at least try to make things low poly. It's going to look real bad. All right. Nice. And see how I'm trying to keep the same kind of, ooh, nice. We can just use the shift and control. I've been going in and out of this mode for no reason. Shift and control allow us to delete edges too, so we can get rid of annoying edges that we don't need. Haven't I just been complicating this? It's one of my specialities. And that edge is dumb. Let's get rid of that. You know what? That's looking pretty fine. You just can't avoid some of these vertices right here. Like, I'm not going to go crazy. I want some supporting geometry on some of the flatter stuff. But again, well, I guess that's me doing that elegant thing. So your relax tool won't make everything elegant. So you will have to hand place some stuff. I'm going to, oh, my auto weld was too high. Let's bring it down again. Or I could have just turned it off for a little bit. Such a crazy puzzle time, isn't it? Like, what can I get away with, what I can't? Half the things I'm doing, I'm just doing on intuition because I know what will happen. So the important thing is just to keep in mind is it's all about your silhouette when you make your low poly. So if it's not doing anything for the silhouette, like there's no tricky dips or jut outs, and it's kind of a flat thing too, as long as there's some supporting geometry there, dude, you can nuke most of it. I'm trying to get these more spaced out. Yeah, I like the way this looks. Of course, you're probably screaming at me for those one or two vertices you saw 5 minutes ago, like those right there. But give me a break. I don't even know why I just did that. All right, all right, all right. So let's just call it there so we can keep going with the video. And the last thing I'm going to do. Oh, I got an N-gon right there. I just see these. I just see these things. But we're going to do a mesh cleanup just to make sure I'm going to get rid of all my N-gons. So there's my mesh cleanup tool. By default, remember it says clean it. Go ahead and clean it up. No, I'll handle that. Thank you very much, Maya. But I want to select matching polygons with faces more than 4 sides. Okay, so this is what I get. You know what? I'm going to grab the snipping tool from Maya. Oh, let's do a new one. And I'm going to kind of grab like a little screen grab so I can know which faces are N-gons. I'm going to move that to my other screen for reference. I'm just showing us all kind. Oh, look at that hole. Quadrille will save the day for us. Boom. I pinned a polygon tool, eat your heart out. But I don't know what's going on there. So let's figure that out. See, that's annoying, isn't it? It's just not snapping. Let me bring up my snap tolerance. There we go. All right, so it said right here I had one, and I just fixed it. Right here's a problem, so we'll just start combining geometry. I don't like the way I did that. Hmm. What I really just need to do is grab my multi-cut tool. All right, I guess I'll just keep going with my multi-cut tool. Fixing N-gons and low poly. Oh my God, it's so nice. You don't have to think about anything. So cherish the small wins when you see them. We don't always get them. Did I fix everything? All right. Again, I always do a cleanup until I get no more. Up right there. Yeah, I didn't hear you when you were yelling at me about it. Sorry. All right. Did we just finish our low poly model? Look how nice it looks, right? We got our nice borders to accentuate our divots and our extrusions. This over here, just it already looks good without any textures and almost like a hard edge on our mesh display. And our circle up here is perfect for our manhole. We can have a nice little back face ring around it, just in case we need that extra geometry to plug up any seams or holes. Oh, this edge loop is dumb. What does it do? Pretty important down through there. So let's keep that, and we'll just tie it off right there. We'll do a merge, and now we can get rid of it. Nice. All right. I'm happy with this. Um, nice. Why don't we put a nice UV map on this? All right. It's going to be pretty easy to UV map this. Not too much craziness. So let's go to our UV editor. And I think I'm just going to start it with an automatic map just to get everything from looking crazy. Actually, yeah, let's just do an automatic map and see what it gives us. All right, for the most part, not too bad. And then I'm just going to redo all this. Oh, wrong screen. So this, what I want to do is select these faces here, just my front faces. I think the easiest way to do that would be to select my border edges first. So what I'm going to do is double click around my outside border edges. And then we're going to do a convert edge selection to a face selection. So I hold down Control and right click and go to faces to faces. And bada bing, bada boom. Knowing selection tricks, man, it will save you so much time. It's crazy. And then I can just do an inverse selection with shift and drag. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take like get my mesh position straight on. Like I'm going to take a snapshot from this angle. And you'll see how it, we'll go to create and we'll do a camera base. That way we get as many faces exposed. So when I do an unfold, oh, all right. Oh no. So this is a pretty interesting error in that when I was creating my retopologized stuff, I had non-manifold geometry, meaning geometry that's just kind of messed up. So this might be a good section on learning how we can fix maybe some geometry issues that occur after you finish your retopo. All right, so the first thing we're going to do, we can kind of see maybe where some of the geometry is weird. But the first thing I'm going to do is use my cleanup tool again, but this time we're going to use it to select matching tools for non-manifold geometry. And we'll hit apply. And we can see some of the vertices that are giving us trouble. Some things are just holes. Like I don't have a hole right here or a face right there. So I'm going to use my append to polygon tool to plug in that face. And then is that going to work? Okay, so that works. There's another area or something that's weird. Yeah, there's no rhyme or reason for this. See, look what happened here. This face, it got connected to these back vertices instead of these top vertices. So that's a yikes. That's three faces to one edge. You know, that's no bueno. Append to polygon tool will help us though. We'll get us out of that retopo mode, put a little bit more in our hands. And then right here was a really interesting thing. For some reason, the geometry just got really confused here when I guess I was combining my low mesh and my high mesh. So look at that. Just kind of like weird faces where they don't need to be. Um, and you may just have to kind of check a few places to see where they are. Yeah, there was another one. I'm going to undo that, and it looks like that's another one. So your 1 and 3 trick is still one of the best ways to get in there and see what's going on with your geometry. And here I think I will go back into retopology mode, just because I think the Quadrille will make it work a little bit easier. Let's see. So I'm going to select, I need to make my original surface live again that I want to retopo over. Live, and then we'll select my low poly, and then we can go into Quadrille. Nice. And I'm going to be a little bit more thoughtful here. I'm not going to rely on automated snapping. That might have been my downfall last time. Here we go. And why don't we just terminate this into one big triangle? There we go. All right. Let's see if we have any manifold geometry after these fixes. We might not. But we're going to find out. Mesh, cleanup. Nice. It didn't find anything. So all that weird geometry issues stuff going on was the reason why my UVs came out all janky. But it's fine because we can still grab the faces that we projected and leave all of our border edges over here. And boom, why don't we do another, now that I got it lined up right, we'll do another camera base and then unfold. And bada bing, bada boom, that's perfect. I'm going to try to keep as few islands as possible. So I'm going to do some quick puzzling around that concept of just make this pretty big. And the rest of the stuff, maybe we can project and see what part goes where. So I'm going to start organizing my islands. So this is the top part here. This is this part. And, you know, I can even use my, I can work with both things. And I might do some camera projections with this to see how I can get some geometry. So I'm going to group these sections together because eventually I think I'm going to do a camera projection on this piece right here. Get it lined up and looking good. We'll get a nice camera projection of that. We'll scale it down to about the same as that. And I'm probably just going to let the automatic map keep going with this, except, I don't know. I don't like the way it's all. Oh, I think, okay, so I have some of that stuff over here and some of that stuff over there. That's fine. To be honest, I probably could have just flattened out the whole thing with how uneven and geometric it is. I'm going to pause this and puzzle this out, and then I'll show you the results. The video's getting long. So here's an interesting trick I'm about to do, and it kind of riffs off of select your border edges and then convert to faces. But what we can see is that these bricks kind of have that extra dividing line in them to give them more detail. So I didn't actually, when I did the gross selection, I didn't get all of these bricks truly. So what I can do is I have all these extra faces selected. Well, I'm just going to deselect them over my UV map. And now, or use my UV map to deselect, because I can definitely tell that it's like these ring of faces that I'm missing. It's a little bit easier to select them when they're flat like this, I think. Nice. So now I've got the faces isolated that I want to do my own automatic map on again. I'll select this one. So I'm just going to let an automatic map handle those border edges. And that looks a lot better than it did. You got to admit. And that's fine. All right. So now I'm going to puzzle this out now that I got better islands going for me. And just like that, I'm back. And I got this nice and puzzled out. And there we go. I've got my model UV now. We are nearing the end of this nice video on how we can get retopology working. And let's get rid of some of these colors. All right, so I'm going to get rid of my UV map. That's good. The next thing I'm going to consider is my edge hardness and softness. Right now it's all hard edge. So in mesh display, if we harden edge, we can see it's hard. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to go to soft and harden edges. Instead of giving it an angle to go around, I'm going to give just harden where there's only UV texture borders. And boom, this is what we get. And this will be a nice surface for the normal maps to bake onto. All right, perfect. I'll still catch those nice dips of color here and there. We lose some of that detail, but keep in mind our normal map is going to come in and fix any of these weird artifacts that we may have. So back in the day, this would have been really bad to see, but our normal maps are going to come in and pretty much fix it for us. So this is our game model. So now all we have to do is export it out as an OBJ. And I'm going to put it in my desktop and call this low poly UV'd like so. Let's double check and make sure I got it. Low poly UV'd, perfect. Got a bunch of other stuff going on here. And now we can move into Mudbox and bake our normal map. All right, so let's bring back Mudbox. I'm going to press W to take my wireframe off here. I'm going to go to my highest subdivision level. So for this model, it's a 6. And I'm going to go to UVs and maps, extract texture maps, new operation. Let's call this normal map bake. And we will select it to be a normal map. It's asking for what we want to bake it to. And by default, it just picks the lowest sub-D level of whatever object you're trying to bake to. But we have our own here. So we're actually going to back out here. And we're going to import our low poly mesh into Mudbox, into our scene. So make sure you're on object list up here in the right-hand corner so we can see what's up. We'll go to import and we'll grab on our desktop our low poly UV OBJ and open that up. And boom, there's our low poly mesh and there's our high poly, both in the same scene. You can see that they're laying really nicely on top of each other. Pretty good. A lot better than the 0 sub-D level would have done. So we'll go to our normal bake operation, see how it saves it for us. We'll select normal map again, and then with my low poly mesh selected, I'll add selected. All right, it has my high poly mesh that's nicely unnamed, sorry about that, already in here as my source model. All right, and the method we're going to use is ray casting. We're going to go to closest to low res. We'll hit best guess. We'll turn off both sides. One map, and let's do a 2K resolution. Edge bleed, let's handle that ourselves. I like to do about, 8 will be fine, I guess. But I want to make sure I have control over that. I at least want to give it 2K or 2X. I'm going to do 4X here. Coordinate space tangent. Let's do Maya. Texture type, map type texture. Let's figure out where we're going to save it. And I'll just put it on my desktop for now. And I'm going to save this as a PNG. And let's call this wall normal. Bits per channel, 18 or 16 are fine. I'll just do 8 right now. And I don't want to preview my normal map on my mesh. I'll preview it in Unity, thank you. And then we just hit extract and give it a second. It's a little bit faster than Maya, but it still needs to do its thing. It'll give you a results ping, if you will. So that's a nice low poly there. You see my computer's chugging. It's really thinking about it. Map extraction finished successfully. Why don't we take a gander there? We'll just set it as my background. And that is some nice detail right there. Looks pretty good, huh, guys? Look at that. That even looks like concrete. And I sculpted that by hand. Nice. Feels good to see something come to fruition. All right, why don't we test our normal map inside of Unity? Really, that's the defining test. So, you can test it in Maya, test it in Mudbox, but how it looks in a real-time engine is all that matters. So I'm just going to pause and open up just a blank Unity scene just to see how it looks and get it set up. All right, so I got a Maya scene open, and we're just going to do a quick and dirty preview. I'm just going to drag and drop my assets in. So let's grab that low poly UV as well. So that's really all we need is our mesh and our low poly to preview. So let's go and look and see our wall. Let's create a material. Let's apply it to our mesh. Let's apply our normal map to our material. Let's fix it. And this is what we get. And why don't we critique, and I'll tell you how our normal maps are really working for us. So let's give a nice muted color range on this so we can actually see the detail. So even though we weren't capturing the complete silhouette here, our detail projected still pretty good. So this is what happens. When you look at something at an extreme angle, like obviously this silhouette didn't match up, it kind of gives like this dark artifact look, but from far away, it kind of just looks like a deeply shadowed whatever. And then when you put your textures on top of it, it's not going to be as noticeable as you think. So, the normal maps do a good job when our silhouettes don't line up sometimes, right? Why don't we see how our cylinder did up here? That's pretty decent. Not too bad at all. And don't really need our back. And I'm going to call this an easy bake normal map. Look at that. And since we have the geometry to support this detail, just look how much better these details look, right? Let me bring up a shaded on wireframe. We really do kind of capture those nice high poly details that come out. So you see how the wireframe's kind of wrapping around there for us while I turn it back off. And it just elevates this to that, next gen expectation of where we need to be with some of our better models. All right. So with some nice textures and PBR materials attached, this wall is going to shape up to look pretty decent. All right. Thanks for watching, guys.